Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to the final episode of the Klay Podcast. And I didn't stutter, people. Welcome back. This is the final Klay episode. We're gonna get more into that towards the end of this one. But as always, welcome back to my brothers, Matt, Charlie. How we doing, boys? Merry Christmas. Christmas 2 days ago. Hopefully, you guys had a great holiday break, watching some sports, football, basketball. Tough day for the Bay Area. But Charlie and Matt, talk to us, brothers. How we doing? How we doing? How's Christmas?
No, we're doing great, man. Enjoying the holidays back home with some family. Yeah, like you said, kind of a rough Christmas for Bay Area sports, but on we move. On we move.
On we
How you
move.
doing, Matt?
Doing solid, man. I got the coronavirus for Christmas. So that's fucking fantastic. I'm enjoying though a little bit of outdoor weather in Ventura, California. It's nice out, man. I'm sitting outside and getting this outdoor pod done. So no, nothing too bad, right? We'll be all right.
Nothing too bad. Yeah, like you said, Chuck, that was a great way to sum it up, man. Bay Area sports was very naughty this year, I guess, with a lot of it stems from, Draymond Green punching you and just another Niners heartbreak, the Giants with a tough season. So I guess, it's been a bad year in terms of what Bay Area sports have accomplished, but that's the whole point of Christmas, man. You get those presents and New Year, new calendar starts now. So turn the page. But for the Warriors, as we kind of jump into this one. Tough loss against the Nuggets. Great showing, to be honest. I'm gonna just kick it off there. I was pretty encouraged. 116-110 loss to the defending champs on the road. Short rest, kind of on that weird 11:30 Pacific time start, playing a couple days before that. So, Matt, you and I kind of talked going into that game, and I know you kind of predicted a loss. I was hopeful in a win, but kind of tempered
Right
those.
again.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yep.
I did get the Celtics game right, so shout out to me for that. But no, I'm just playing. But it was one of those games where the Warriors were really in that one, and yeah, another Steph kind of Christmas clunker, and the man should win the award for best Christian because he never fails to show up Jesus on his birthday. But kind of just talk me through that game, guys. It felt like it was I never want to say encouraging loss anymore just because this team is not at that stage anymore where losses should be encouraging, but it really did feel like one of those where a solution of like less is more, where you kind of didn't really know which way to kind of lean in terms of rotation wise, who to close with. Had some foul trouble with some guys in TJD and Loon Garden Jokic. Obviously the comments from Kerr after the game and rest of the players in terms of like the type of whistle they were getting and getting into all that, but Chuck, man, talk to me, man. How what did you see out there on Christmas, and how should we look at that loss? Because yeah, like I said, I feel pretty encouraged after that Christmas game, all things considered.
Yeah, so I think if you work backwards from the things that happened in this game, so if you don't see the final score and someone told you Jokic shot 18 free throws, Andrew Wiggins was the leading scorer for the Warriors. The Nuggets shot 41% from three, and Steph and Klay combined to shoot 10 of 33. You'd be like, oh, we got boat raced. Like they lost by 20, 30, like we got destroyed. But they were in it. They were in it all the way until the end. And that was even with their best scorers not being able to make shots. Uh, Comments about the whistle aside, like Jokic getting 18 free throws, it's just not a thing that's going to happen often. Uh, but the Warriors did a lot of good things. I mean, they really held down the Nuggets bench. They dominated their bench. And, that's been a problem for Denver a lot of this season, but they really just stepped up, had a lot of guys contributing, especially with Wiggs coming off the bench. But we got a good Chris Paul scoring game. We got a good game out of Dario again. Trace Jackson Davis giving some good minutes. Um, on the individual level, besides the struggles from some of the guys you see with the starting unit, Brandon Pajemski, man, is just like blowing me away on a nightly basis. The way he's just able to create for this team, the consistency. I mean, he has these big scoring nights, but the way he goes out and rebounds, his last three games, 7 boards, 5 assists, 10 boards, 7 assists, 9 boards, 6 assists. He's also got 7 steals over that time period, including 5 against that Nuggets team. It cannot be overstated how this guy just has an absolute nose for the ball. He's everywhere all at once without doing too much. He's not really overhelping as a guard, which I think has been huge. And he's making a lot of plays for this team. Not only is he making the connective passes, but he's pushing the ball in transition. He's finding guys filling the lanes, and he's getting downhill and making good kickouts, good layoff passes. I really like his connection with Trace on the pick and roll. That's my main takeaway. Like, yeah, tough loss, but so much went wrong for them on a night where so much went right for the Nuggets, and they kept it close. And Pods is just looking more and more like the real deal with every game. Matt, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, actually, I'm not. You guys know I'm not one for silver linings, right? But I actually didn't leave that game as pissed off by the Warriors as I normally am, right? I think. Listen, again, I will say this every time, right? A team does not lose to the refs, right? You're not going to win most games. And Steph and Klay, Chuck, you said 10 for 33 overall. Is that right? Steph and Klay shot
Yeah, 10 for
10 for
33.
Yeah. So listen, when your two best guys or two best scorers at least are shooting, 31% from the field, you're going to lose most likely, right? And the fact that they were in the game, like you said, encouraging on its own. Tons of big takeaways. Like you said, listen, if Wiggins is awake, if Wiggins is semi-awake, if Wiggins is like, if he's in his if he's exiting Eeyore and going towards like Piglet, I don't know what's happening, man. But if he's getting better at life right now and just becoming more of what we saw 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, or even last year when he first came back from his hiatus, that's a win, right? And that's a win for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, again, we're getting close to the trade deadline, right? If Wiggins is playing well, that gives you more options as a selling team, as a buying team, pardon me, right? You have one more guy who, let's say they don't want to move on from Wiggins and they have to move JK. If Wiggins is back or close to what he used to be, that's more palatable, right? Let's say it's vice versa, right? Let's say they want to trade Wiggins now. Guess what? That guy Wiggins, if he's 18 points per game, Wiggins, if he's 38% from the 3-point line, Wiggins, that's a guy some teams actually might want. Right. So no, I agree with the whole Wiggins point. I also want to point out Kuminga is just becoming this little mismatch hunter in the post. And Chuck, you've always been really high in Kuminga's post work. Whether it's scoring, drawing fouls, or even passing off the block, he's really good down there. So no, it actually wasn't encouraging. There were encouraging aspects of the loss, to be clear. I don't think this team can really afford to lose any games at this point. So I'm never going to leave a game being like, hey, feeling great. But as far as what had to happen, they're playing one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the league. Solid. Also, yeah, Pods needs to stay in the starting lineup, and Pods need to be. Listen, again, said it a moment ago. Trade deadline's coming up. You can't touch that guy. I don't know what Pods is overall. I tweeted out the other day he might end up peaking as like an 18, 8-6 guy. Guess what? That's an all-star, and he's a dog. Okay, don't trade that kid. When Draymond gets back, Pods needs to stay in the lineup. And on that note, so does JK. The only guy that's got to go is Looney. That guy, those 2 guys can't go anywhere, in my opinion, at this point. JK, I'm becoming a little more reticent to move on from, but all I'm saying is that the Warriors have a lot of guys. They got a lot of dudes, and guess what? All the stuff we wanted before the first 20 games of the season were guys stepping up outside of Steph. We're seeing that, right? We're seeing Wiggins step up. We're seeing Kuminga step up. Saric. Listen, the guy is he might as well be, translucent on defense, right? But on offense, he's getting buckets, man. On the block, he's getting buckets. He's stretching the floor like he's supposed to. This team's good and they're deep. We're gonna get into some Kuminga stuff in a second, but the things that we wanted earlier in the season, we wanted these guys to step up because everybody besides Steph was asleep. Hey, they're awake. They're awake, and that's good.
Hey man, if that's one thing that we would have asked for Christmas like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that's something that we are seeing come into life right now. And I think you guys hit on it, man. Just the depth of this team is what kind of stood out to me that game. And there was a stretch where I think funnily enough, is a stretch I feel like they lost the game. It was they had like 6 or 7 straight threes or missed shots, and Denver wasn't making it on the other end. It was like might have been tied or we were down by 1 or something like that in that fourth quarter. But it felt like the Warriors just kind of went away from Kuminga, and obviously Wiggins was having a great game, and but they just couldn't find a combination that could just kind of put the ball in the basket, whether that was hoisting up threes or going away from kind of what worked in terms of, like you guys said, attacking those mismatches in the post and, just punishing Denver in a time where I think Jokic might have been off the floor, and chance to really steal that game. And so like whatever 2-3 minute stretch in that fourth quarter. But yeah, that my biggest takeaway, kind of what you were hinting at, Matt, was just the Warriors may have a problem with having too many guys, and kind of just segueing into our next kind of topic because I feel like you guys hit on the game pretty well, encouraging loss, but the issue at large, I think right now is that they have too many guys, Chuckster, and it's not necessarily and it's not a bad thing, to be honest. Like that's every team's goal is to have, 10, 11, 12 guys even that you can consistently like commit to put out there and trust what you can get with these guys. And I think for the Warriors right now, it's the solution of less is more has never been more prevalent. Because you're at a weird kind of you're a weird like fork in the road in terms of your young guys that you drafted 2-3 years ago, even this year. They're ready to take that leap. They're ready to step into the rotation. But the guys that you also kind of leaned on to win a championship, a year and a half ago, are still, producing at levels that you're not accustomed, you're not used to them being this drop in production. But at the same time, when given kind of that leash, we've seen Wiggins have a few good games here and there, starting to string stuff together. What Looney brings to the table, obviously Draymond has been out. GP2 has been injured, so you've had to lean on these young guys, and they've answered the bell, they've answered the call, and you are at a moment in time right now with, as Matt kind of alluded to, the trade deadline's approaching. And Jonathan Kuminga had some really interesting comments after the game on Christmas. Talking to Marcus Thompson. Essentially just kind of not calling out, but calling out the I guess just kind of vagueness of what his role is on the team, what the substitution patterns look like, and kind of asking the question that all of us are asking. I'm sure the young guys on the team and Moses, TJD, maybe even Paz, even though he's kind of had the longest leash of these young guys, but kind of just like I don't know what to expect in terms of playing time minutes. There's a part where in that quote where he goes, sometimes I've got to take away the mindset of him, being able to score one-on-one and take that away and to make sure my OGs get the ball and he's getting confused and stuff like that. So just reading those comments after the game, it was refreshing to hear. I'm not gonna lie. Just in terms of kind of somebody on the team feeling like or saying what we're feeling in terms of I feel like that's been a point of discussion for us is going away from some of these vets, obviously with the Wiggins benching and some injuries have kind of opened up some of these conversations as well. But talk me through JK's comments, Matt, because I know you were kind of on the same page in terms of like kind of stoked to hear somebody kind of say to call it out really and which is I think for sums up what the issue with this team is right now and if you can really call it, I mean it is an issue, but it's one of those problems where you kind of wish this was a problem over a punch in the locker room or something like that, where that ruined the season. This is a very fixable problem, but it's definitely one that I think it's at the point where you've got to solve it quicker sooner than later, especially with February kind of approaching with the trade deadline.
Yeah, so I do want to read the whole, at least the main part of the quote. I'm going to cut a little bit of stuff out, but he said, JK said, "Me without the ball, nobody's guarding me." Goes on to say, "But sometimes I've got to take that away to make sure my OGs get the ball. That's where it's confusing. Sometimes I come out the game not knowing what I did, and that messes with my head. It's like what they want me to do. I can pass and I can do different shit." So there's a little more there, but I thought that was probably the most descriptive part of the whole article from Thompson, Marcus Thompson of The Athletic, of course. But first of all, like he's absolutely right. I don't blame JK at all for this, like one bit. I mean, we've all talked about all season how Steve Kerr's probably managed the young guys as poorly as possible. This year he's gotten a little better at it, I would say. But as far as the last 2-3 years with JK, with Moody, Wiseman's a whole different story, of course, and he's doing a pretty good job with pods, I think we could say, right? But with JK and Moody specifically, he's not done a good job. And Jonathan Kuminga at this point has every right to. I'm sorry, I don't think he did it without tact. I thought he did it relatively respectfully. Right at the end of the article, he goes on to say and talk about how this team can still win a title and how great they still are and how he thinks they can still be great together. Right, it was not a place of like me. If you read the whole thing, but the kid needs to play 25 minutes a night at minimum, and on a night like Christmas or morning like Christmas, right? Against the Nuggets, he was the only guy who could get something going against a mismatch, right? We saw him put Murray in the basket a couple times. We saw him going to the free throw line. We saw him in attack mode. You don't have that elsewhere, and they haven't had that elsewhere for many years now. And the fact that Steve Kerr still does not consistently go to this guy, uh, it's a problem. It's a problem that hasn't necessarily resolved itself yet, and that to me is, I'm not gonna say concerning. That seems overly dramatic, but like, dude, come on, what are we doing? Like this, you need to play this kid more. He's either gonna play himself out of your team because he's so good, or you'll find out he's not that great and you can move on from him anyways, right? You can figure out what you gotta do with the kid, but Kuminga's good, and he should be frustrated at this point. And I think, here's my guess, right? He probably has talked to Coach Kerr about this stuff. I doubt that they haven't had these conversations. I doubt that this hasn't happened yet. I'm sure he's at a point now where he's like, listen, I have done what you've asked of me almost every sense, right? He brings the energy way better than he used to. There's all kinds of talk about his defense. His defense is fine. It's not great. He's 22, 23 years old. If that, 21, I think actually. So, listen, he's still learning, but he's still, again, you don't have a perfect roster. You have a bunch of guys who are really good at certain things, and you can't really afford to be isolating these kids. You can't, because again, Kuminga, this team's ceiling is so dependent on their young guys, especially Kuminga, right? Because again, he brings something these other guys don't bring. And so going forward, I hope Kerr does not take this as a slight. I hope it's not viewed as like some kind of breaching of of the code, as Kerr might call it. You know what I mean? Kuminga's right, and I don't blame him for being frustrated and finally saying, hey, I feel comfortable saying this to the press and to Marcus Thompson of all people, because this has gone about pretty poorly for me. And again, he's got a contract year. He's in a contract year next year, right? This is next year is his 4th year option coming up. So yeah, I'd be annoyed too at this point. The kid's talented, and he's shown. I think very honestly, Jonathan Kuminga could average 18 points a game for this team. I think pretty easily. If he's getting 32 minutes a game and they're using him on the block, they're using him as a transition monster. If he's getting to the free throw line, I think 18 points per game for a team that needs scoring is right there. Simultaneously, nobody's guarding me is hilarious. I'm sorry, my guy. You got to work on that handle a little bit, okay? That's not to say that the whole moral of the quote is gone, but maybe it's just natural cockiness from an NBA player. But I hope there's a little bit of when he says he's got to get his OGs involved, I'm like, my guy, you're talking about Steph Curry. Like, it's not like you got to put your talent away for Steph. Like, Steph's got to get you more involved, probably. All right, but let's not get things confused here. Chuck, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of took the nobody's guarding me. It's kind of funny because I thought I took nobody's guarding me as they don't care what I do. And I know, like, I think in the context of that, he was kind of, being like, hey, if I get my handle tight and I'm driving, like, nobody can contain me. And he's pretty much right there. Like, if he's not dribbling it off his leg or, taking a really bad shot, like, he's extremely hard to guard on the drive. But it's also true that teams are pretty much just going to leave him alone when you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson out there, because they're just like, hey, if this guy beats us, he beats us. I think there are some little things too, like people throw out the general term like, oh, he needs to be cutting, he needs to be moving, he needs to do these things. But, there's a time and the place for that. Like, if you're the guy who's stationed in the corners, you can't just be cutting all the time. You might be throwing a wrench in an action unexpectedly. But, I'd love to see just a little more like in and out fakes, like just stutter in a couple steps and try to draw your guy back out, like throw the defense off a little bit when you can. If you have action going on the other side and you're on the weak side, like if you just threaten to cut backdoor and you distract your man for a second, you might take the low man out of the play when you cut back outside. So there are little things that I think he can be doing to better support his teammates. And I think the one thing that I really took away from that was, when he says I got to get the OGs involved, like when he drives, what he's trying to do. He's trying to get downhill. He's trying to draw contact, get to the line. And those are all good things. But the Warriors, I think, have really succeeded in this system because they have guys who can do multiple things once they get on the drive. They can kick out. They can keep things flowing. Like we've seen it time and time again where, Steph creates something, he kicks to someone, that guy kicks and drives, and then he either kicks back to Steph or Steph is one swing pass away, and now Steph's getting an open shot. off of something that someone else created. So I think there are a lot of things Kuminga needs to work on. Really, to me, it comes more down to the defensive end because it's a problem you see with a lot of young guys. When he's on the ball, he's extremely engaged. He's doing the right things. He looks like a lockdown defender. When he's off the ball, he's losing cutters. He's late on rotations or missing them entirely. He's not boxing out the way he should with that kind of frame. So I think that's really my area for improvement is, how do you make yourself more of an asset when the ball is not in front of you? Because, that's kind of the issue is if you have a poor off ball game defensively, but you're really good on the ball, guess what? Guys aren't going to go at you. They're just going to look at you and say, not him, like someone else do this. And then so if they kick the ball away from you, then they're going to get better scoring opportunities because the ball is off of them and because you're losing attention and because you're missing rotations. So I think those are some things that he really needs to work on there. But on the whole, I do agree with the idea that these are refreshing comments saying like, hey, I'd like a little more consistency out of the coaching and knowing what my role is. But at the same time, there are things I can do to be better and more consistently define this role. And we saw that response from Steve Kerr. Like Steve Kerr loves that kind of thing. He loves a player saying, hey, I think you can do a little bit better here. Because I think he's always been a guy who has seen this as a two-way street. He's not the kind of guy who just says like, oh, you need to improve in this and this and this and this, but you don't tell me what I need to improve at. So if a guy is telling him, hey, I think this could be better, then let's hope that he listens.
1,000%. I think, you guys covered the like the essence of the quote really well, but I think like for the reason that JK being the guy to say it feels so powerful, or not necessarily impactful is the word that I'm looking for, but essentially because he is really the most dynamic young guy that we've had in terms of athleticism that can kind of shown the ability to kind of to impact the game with these vets, especially with his above the rim athleticism, what he's been able to do this season, especially just kind of taking that leap. Jump shot looks better, just attacking. And I think that, like you guys said it, man, like once he does get that that once that he gets that handle a little tighter, nobody can really guard him. And we kind of saw that in that Nuggets game. It felt like they went away from him in terms of attacking people on the post. Granted, Wiggins was having a great game, so like it's one of those again. It kind of just goes back to that larger issue of like they have a lot of guys, and there's only 5 people that can play at a time, and 3 of them are most likely going to be Steph, Klay, and Draymond. So you're really fighting for like 6 different dudes for 2 spots. And now with the rise of these young guys, it's going to be even more. And JK has had moments where he's shown that he should be that guy to kind of warrant that next step in terms of taking that leap and just the way he can impact the game. I just think that we've seen what like the NBA is getting younger and more athletic, by the year. And, to have a guy on your roster that can kind of go toe to toe with some of the most athletic guys that you'll face, and against teams like Houston, Portland, that we've seen JK kind of dominate so far this season. That Portland game, being the one that kind of got him out of doghouse or whatever it was in that second half. So I think it's interesting, and to hear Kerr's response too, I think is encouraging in terms of, like he's not gonna take this as a slight or use this as hopefully won't use this as a reason to kind of bench JK and kind of send a message. It seems like he said it in the right way. It sounds like the kid is doing what he needs to do at practice and the film room and stuff like that. So but I just think it just highlights that larger issue that it's going to come down to Money Mike, man. Mike Dunleavy, we joked about it a lot on the podcast on these episodes, but he might have to save Steve Kerr from himself because dude has 12 legit guys. And, I'm not saying this is a Steve Kerr problem anymore. I think that this is any coach's problem. It's hard to find that combination when you don't have, a set 9 to 10 guys that you can go to on a nightly basis when you are doing things game by game. And, guys are going to get frustrated with that. Young guys, old guys, and you're really towing that line of who the potential versus what you're doing in that actual game. And so I think it is an issue that the Warriors are going to have to commit to a certain level of just a lane between either one of these guys. I don't want to single it out to just JK and Wiggins, but it kind of feels like that's going to be the decision that's going to be made. But again, like these, we kind of said it on the last, after that Nugget or that Suns loss to drop 10-14, the Draymond suspension and everything. It's a culmination of 10 to 15 games and 20 games, and I think over the first stretch of that they're 4-1. And JK, Pods, TJD have had a lot to say. Moody have had a lot to say about that initial kind of first 4 or 5 and 6 or whatever they are in that run, and since they made that announcements. But at the end of the day, the Warriors are back to 500. Obviously we're above it for that next game, but now you're entering a stretch where you really have a lot of home games coming up, a lot of playoff teams that are going to come in and chase, and so this like next 5-6 games, I think that's the way they're going to try and break it out. I'm assuming you're going to get Draymond back after this stretch of 5 to 6 at least. So this is kind of the last kind of chance, I feel like, for some of these young guys, Wiggins, to kind of make a plea for themselves to stay on this team in terms of what direction Mike Dunleavy can go. But I think either way, though, we're kind of starting to see everything to come together a little bit, and these comments are just kind of just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what I feel like is the biggest issue on this team so far right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like Kerr's got this funny dilemma now where Doc Rivers always used to say, trust. I think he said trust 6, play 7. Okay, that was kind of his thing, right? He wanted that 7th spot. It was usually with regards to like playoff rotations, right? You're gonna have your 6 guys, you can count on, and you want to give your team something to kind of fight for, right? And for him, it was that 7th spot. He'd say trust 6 guys, play 7 guys. Who's the 7th guy, right? Like right now, Steve Kerr trusts 1 and plays 11. You know what I mean? He trusts Steph. And what does he trust? He trusts Chris Paul with his life. I think Steve Kerr is like, he's like some character in a movie who just like falls in love super fast. Some girl who's like just destined to break his heart, man. Like Chris Paul is that for Steve Kerr, But no, this team just needs to consolidate, man. And it is. I think there are ways around it, but it does just feel like a Wiggins Kuminga separation at some point is probably where this is going.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I'm with you there. I think they're two extremely difficult guys to play together because one is kind of sinking the offense with not being able to make shots, not being a consistent threat as a cutter, doing his little post-ups, and Andrew Wiggins. And then, and think Kuminga, especially with his off-ball game, he's kind of sinking the defense because this is a team that relies on playing on a string. And if part of that string isn't working, then the whole thing starts to crumble. So I think, like splitting them apart is really key. And we've seen the results pay off with, the way they're able to hold things together defensively. Especially with Kuminga there, they can kind of cobble things together with the group they have. And then with Wiggins, he can really elevate the defense of the bench unit while also having guys who make his job really easy, like Chris Paul, the girlfriend destined to break Steve Kerr's heart, as Matt so eloquently put it. So, I think that'll be something to monitor once Draymond comes back from his suspension, assuming if they are still just holding up pictures of European guys, if he can stop punching and kicking them during his therapy sessions, then hopefully he'll be back soon. And then it'll get really interesting to see how the split goes.
100%, man. And it's kind of funny because like the Warriors, brand has always been strength in numbers. And it's kind of at a point where you might have to start thinking about a little rebrand. And funny enough that I mentioned that because we've got a rebrand here coming at Game 6 Klay. Guys, it's been a fun three. This is our 4th season doing it. 4th season for Game 6 Klay. We started the pandemic right after the Klay Achilles and James Wiseman draft. So obviously just a momentous time in what this dynasty is kind of shaped into. We had that whole 2021 season. We had the championship run last year with the punch and everything like that, and now this year kind of just trying to come back. So it's been a lot of hoops that us three have talked, and we've been kind of discussing this for a minute now. But to kind of announce it officially. Matt, this kind of stemmed from your thoughts, man. So I'm gonna let you kind of bring this one home and get the new era started.
Yeah, well, first of all, 3.5, 4 years is crazy. I mean, we kind of got dropped off right in the fucking fire, didn't we? With that, the Achilles and the Wiseman pick, man.
Yeah,
If
man.
I don't know if we'd still be here otherwise, guys. That's the hardest thing to get through was those two moments. Yeah, so listen, we think that fandom is really cool. That's what brought us all together, right? And we think that'd be really awesome to connect fans in a way that they can actually learn to experience what other fans, other teams are going through. Um, and so this, like Gotham has said, is our final episode of the Game 6 Klay pod. And going forward, we're going to treat this as more of like a pregame pod in a lot of ways, and a preview pod for big games every week, wherein we'll have a guest on from another fan base, whether it's a journalist or a podcast host or a writer, blogger, whatever it might be, but somebody who knows and loves that team a lot, right? Somebody who knows that team in the same way that I'm sure everybody listening feels that they love the Warriors, right? And that's what we think will hopefully create, first of all, like a stronger atmosphere among fan bases, first of all. And also, again, guys, we're all in hell. Like, it's going to be fun when we can all learn together that, hey, every other fan base is going through a lot of the same things we are. And we can also learn about other teams. I think any sport, right? People watch their teams. We watch the Warriors, right? But not everybody's always watching, Miami Heat or the Dallas Mavericks or the Charlotte Hornets. No one's watching them, right? The Washington Wizards, okay. But if we can start getting those guys on and again, just making connections with other fan bases, I think we're going to see some fun results in the basketball community. So again, with that being said, we'll be having 1 to 2 episodes a week, where we'll have a guest from a different team and sometimes a guest from Warriors Twitter to talk just Warriors hoops. But the idea is to connect all of us, guys, and that the name of that podcast is going to be the Warriors Invitational, after Draymond Green's infamous comments after the 2022 NBA Finals when he said, "Welcome back, baby, to the Warriors Invitational."
100%. I think that this is a cool concept. I don't know if there's a lot of people out there doing that, but Matt, I feel like you kind of touched on it the best, man. Like it's about fandom. Like a lot of us, there are a lot of people, doing the whole podcast thing and wanting to get their opinions and voices out there, which is awesome. Which is what it means being a fan. And it is really what brought us together. Obviously we had to get through 2 just insanely tough seasons. And then to come back to see it all kind of culminate, winning a championship and then kind of going through this. So we love just kind of hearing everybody's perspective and getting to know more about the teams that we play. And like Matt said, also just to grow our own kind of Dubs community as well. There's a lot of cool people out there, voices to be heard, people with different takes, different ideas than us probably. And, for us to kind of be at a point where we are starting to kind of see a lot more engagement and see people kind of, vibe with what we say and kind of build a following a little bit, feels like the perfect time to kind of take that next step and really allow, to give other people a platform to speak and do that, but for us as well to kind of grow our own brand and keep the Game 6 Klay kind of energy that we started off with alive and channel that into the Warriors Invitational, man. I don't think that there's a better name that we could have come up with, just given the way Draymond kind of announced it to the world back in June of 2022. But Chuckster, before we get out of here, man, you got any takes? Any thoughts on the rebrand?
No, man, I love it. I'm all for it. I'm excited that we have a good group of fans that we can engage with. I'm looking forward to hearing more from our listeners, hearing different perspectives, hear other people and how they see the Warriors, and especially to hear about their teams a little bit more. So hopefully, you'll still be hearing us talking about our team as much as you like, but we'll also learn a lot more about the other 29 in the association as they come on in to the Invitational.
And that being said, guys, so it's an open invitation. So we'll be reaching out to, as Matt said, kind of podcasters, journalists, fans, whoever it is, man, just to kind of get that next layer of understanding into teams. And obviously for the Warriors itself, we're going to be, as Matt said, kind of recording two a week, hopefully is the goal. Kind of get those game of the weeks that we'll be asking you guys to kind of chime in on what team you want to hear from the most. And go from there. So guys, appreciate the run that we had here at the Game 6 Klay pod. It was a cool idea to start, and to see us kind of continue to do this for 4 years has been kind of wild. I didn't even realize it's been damn near 4 seasons. Kind of felt like, just a blink of an eye, but end of a chapter, and just like that, man, it's time to write the new one with the Warriors Invitational. So we will see you guys on the first episode of the Warriors Invitational, dropping before the Miami Heat game on December 28th. But till then, thank you guys so much for everything. The listeners, to Matt, Chuck, me, but everybody else, man, it's been a ride, and we'll catch you on the next one though. Peace.